This video will take you through the project guide for the Themes Through Time Studio project. These two pieces of art share the same theme. So let's spend a little bit of time just understanding what theme is with these two pieces. This artwork shows people interacting with the environment, and it shows a part of our history here in Canada and the United States, the gold rush, which was popular in the 18th and 19th centuries in northern parts of our country and places like Alaska. This is an installation. So these are ice sculptures made to look like humans sitting on steps. And these were installed in a square in Germany during a season when the artist knew that the sculptures would melt. And that was the artist's intent, is that the sculptures melt. So the theme we could say is humans and the environment. So theme is usually a general broad statement that pertains to a subject or an occurrence or an idea that the artist is exploring in the artwork. And then the topic is more specific. So again, the topic of this painting is gold mining or the gold rush, whereas the topic of this painting is global warming. But it's the same theme, humans and the environment. Because as we know, our choices as humans contribute to our problem of global warming. And that's the statement that this artist was attempting to make in this installation, that unless we do something about global warming, it could lead to our own demise, just like the ice people are melting. This piece of art seems to make a more pleasant, warm statement about humans interacting with the environment. Like these people look to be content and enjoying the work that they're doing, even though it's hard work. They're enjoying being outside with the beautiful environment that's around them, and it's a positive experience. So this piece of art just has a different vibe. And so an artist always considers the statement that they want to make through their artwork and the mood they want their artwork to have. Animals is another theme that we can look at. Here's a piece of art that's known as one of the oldest pieces of art. So these cave artworks were found thousands of years ago in caves in France. There's lots there. And we're talking like 30 to 50,000 years ago. And we can see that artists at the time depicted animals, most likely because animals were important to them. They relied on animals for food and for clothing. But thousands of years later, artists are still making art with animals, depicting animals of different topics, right? So the theme again could be animals or maybe like humans' interactions with animals. And then the topic could be things like, well, who knows? It could be like pets, our relationship with our pets. Could be like wild animals and how we appreciate them. It could be something like animal abuse. The one example on this slide shows that animals are often used in logos to represent ideas, say like a company's idea. So a big part of this project, I guess the premise of it, is that you as an artist will take a theme that other artists throughout time have explored, which is pretty much like every theme, because here we are in the 21st century and humans have been making art for a long time. So for instance, the theme of portraiture, well, that theme has been explored for many, 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 many years, hundreds of years by artists. This portrait is from 1796, at a time when portraiture was meant to kind of idolize or capture a likeness of a person. Like in this case, it's likely that George Washington himself commissioned the artist Gilbert Stuart to paint this. And it shows George Washington in a very majestic and very authoritative pose. And maybe this was hung in like his residence or the White House or somewhere where people would see it. And the statement is made that George Washington was, a great, powerful man. And it's almost as though it was made for George Washington too, or his family, or at least his contemporaries. Now, hundreds of years later, we have this artwork by Shepard Fairey, and it came about in 2008 when Barack Obama was inaugurated as the first ever Black American president. And so Shepard Fairey made this artwork and then mass produced it and just like made it available to everyone basically all over America. And it was almost like it wasn't really made for Barack Obama, it was made more for the people of America as a way to celebrate or as a way to say like, hey, this is a real step forward for us as a nation. We, we've moved beyond the human rights issues, and we're now even going as far as electing colored people as president. So that's a real triumph. And the word hope is sort of suggesting like there's hope that the nation can become even better than it already is. Then America can become an even better place than it is, and move even farther beyond race inequality. So, and just notice the style too, how it's more abstract. Here's another example of contemporary portraits that are just so much different than this one from the 18th century. What I want you to notice about this one is that the artists, and you can see the reference photos down below, or at least what you see down below are photos of the real people who are depicted in the portraits. It's not necessarily true that the artist used those specific reference photos. Okay, but just notice how like the artist isn't just trying to create a likeness like a camera would do, because here we are many years later after cameras were invented, and it's no longer necessary for artists who draw and paint and sculpt even to capture a realistic likeness of their subjects, because a camera can do that. So now artists ask the question, well, what can I do that perhaps a camera can't? What can I do that's unique, that's special? And I love that example of Copernicus in the center, because Copernicus was a scientist from centuries ago who was known for helping to evolve our understanding of the universe, and where Earth falls within the universe and all the heavenly bodies. And so the artist chose to depict Copernicus almost like he's at the center of the universe and the planets are revolving around him. So it's just paying homage to some of the accomplishments that Copernicus was known for. And then look at that boxer portrait of Joe Louis. It's just such a unique approach to a boxer portrait. So instead of depicting Joe kind of like he is in the photo, the artist chose to really emphasize the hands, say, and kind of isolate them by having them not even attached to arms and shoulders. So just really unique. So portraiture's come a long way, and so this is now I'm pointing that out just to make the point that artists are influenced by changes in the art world, or by changes in technology, or by changes in society or societal norms. So that's a big part of the studio project too, is how you as the artist are influenced and how it influences your artwork, how it makes a difference in your artwork. Here's another theme that artists have explored throughout time: identity. So in this painting, it shows the same person twice. So that indigenous chief on the left is him depicted in his traditional clothing and headdress. Then he goes to Washington in the United States and he comes back looking like he's depicted on the right. So, in other words, he's been assimilated. He's now wearing North American or like Western European influenced clothing. And so we know that in the like 18th, 19th century, those were some centuries where there was lots of assimilation of the indigenous culture, sadly, and we still see the effects of that today. So this is, I guess, the artist making a statement that maybe that's kind of a sad thing that happened to that culture. Instead of their differences in customs and clothing and ways of life being celebrated, they were made to feel as though they weren't as good, and they were assimilated into a more Eurocentric lifestyle and existence. Now, here's another identity themed piece of art for more recent times, And the topic is no longer assimilation, it's family heritage. And so this artist likes to, she she's one of the things she's influenced by and so I just want to keep emphasizing that this project is about themes throughout time, but it's also about how an artist is influenced by things in their reality, so factors in their reality. This woman, her whole family has a collection of photos that only takes up one photo album. So in other words, not many. So not she her and her family don't have many photos. They can fit in only one photo album. And what this lady has done, she's from Nigeria, but she now lives in Los Angeles. What she's done is she's got these photos and she makes copies of them, like color copies, and then she transfers them onto large sheets of paper and then colors on top of them with colored pencil and acrylic. And that's what we see here. We see a painting done on paper, and they're very large, and most of the images that you see are collaged on or transferred on, and then color is applied over top. So she's celebrating her family heritage, and she's making a statement that even though she has a life in Los Angeles now, her family background and her heritage is important to her, and it's helped to make her the woman that she is. And not only do we see imagery from her family's history depicted in this artwork, but we see heirlooms too. So some of the kitchen vessels that we see on the table are from her grandmother. So same theme as that painting, but a different topic. Immigration and migration can be a theme too. In this painting, we see a woman who's about to head off to the new world. So back in like 1600s, 1700s, even the 1800s, North America was known as the New World, and there was lots of people who lived in, say, places like England who were excited to go and start a new life in the New World. It was adventurous and risky and bold. And so this is maybe a painting of this woman. It would have been commissioned maybe right before her voyage off to the New World. So in other words, it's a positive experience, immigration and migration. But immigration and migration can also be a negative experience, because sometimes when people migrate or are forced to immigrate to another part of the world, they then live in poverty because they don't have a lot of money and they can't acquire housing or transportation or find a job. And so this piece of art seems to depict that, seems to depict some men who are looking rather destitute. And this is an interesting piece of art, which seems to be another installation. Not even sure what it's made out of. Maybe a board, like wood, but it's set in a public space. Here's another one that kind of has a bit of a negative connotation. So it's still immigration and migration, but it seems to speak more about the struggles and hardships that refugees encounter when they have to flee their homeland, but in between finding a new place to live in the world, they're sent to these refugee camps where they have to live in large groups, and where maybe the food is scarce and living accommodations are not too great, and so it's really hard on them. So again, the same theme, but just a different topic. So that's it. I hope that you have a good understanding of what we mean by themes and topics. So themes is general, and then a topic is more specific. And then the other thing that I've already alluded to, a big part of this project is acknowledging the fact that there are many factors that influence an artist. And here's a list of them. Things like family and personal demographics, meaning like where a person lives and even like their income, what income bracket they're in, what kind of job they have, their geographical location in the world, because sometimes different parts of the world have different, lifestyles, or maybe different access to resources. And so that's going to influence the kind of art a person makes. Ethnicity could influence art making, gender, technology is a huge one. And I'll give you a great example of that right away. But of course, there's been major technological changes in the last 100 years, or a few hundred years, even the last 10 years. I mean, think of how many students nowadays work on tablets with applications like Procreate. Media and pop culture influences artists and their personal interests. Like, if you're into music, maybe you end up making a lot of artwork about musical instruments or musicians. And then, of course, what kind of training an artist has is going to influence what they're capable of doing, even, or what they are interested in doing, what kind of art they're interested in doing and creating. Societal norms, cultural beliefs, and heritage. So factors that influence an artist's artwork. And that's what I want you to just allow to happen, and it will naturally. Like, here's an example. So this piece of art was created by a student here at St. Joseph High School a few years ago, probably the first year we opened. And this student was just kind of sketching on paper, of course, but then she was also playing on her phone on an app that she had. And she had this idea in her head of a composition, but then she started to build it on this app, and it was really great. And so what I then did is I helped her actually create the art, take it to full creation on one of the Microsoft Surface computers in 2303 using both Adobe and Illustrator. So like sorry, Adobe and Illustrator. What I meant to say is Illustrator and Photoshop. So Photoshop, for instance, was used to cut out the heads of the four men and remove the background and all that. And then Illustrator was used to create the setting and the bodies and everything else that you see in the artwork. So it was really fun for the student because it was the first time she'd ever used those Adobe products. And so it was, she had to learn how to use Photoshop and Illustrator first. And then that wasn't too hard though. I mean, she already had the concept of the artwork and the general composition in place because she built it on her phone. And that's kind of the point that, she had access to that technology. She had that phone, the cell phone, and so that enabled her to create this multimedia piece of art. And it's just an amazing piece of art. I just love it. And note the theme, cultural heroes. And then a more specific topic could be like Black advocacy or human rights. And that's because all four of these men, Muhammad Ali, Malcolm X, Jimi Hendrix, and Martin Luther King Jr., they all represented Black advocacy, and a lot of people looked up to them, and they did innovative things, especially like someone like Jimi Hendrix, how innovative he was with music and helping to progress rock music or like guitar, especially electric guitar. Okay, so it's a great example of how the student's own interests and her ability to use technology influenced the kind of art that she made. Here's a big list of some themes that have been explored by artists over the centuries, like, so in other words, ever since there's been humans on earth making art, these are the themes that they've explored. And so that's what you need to do, is you need to choose a theme, and it could be one of these, but there's also more. These are just kind of off the top of my head, but you choose a theme, and then you identify a topic, and that's going to help you get a little bit more specific about what you want to depict in your artwork. And then you go from there, and you choose whatever medium you'd like to work in. You can even work three-dimensionally. So you see there's an example, there's a sculpture on this slide just to kind of make the point that it's okay to work three-dimensionally. So you're going to have a lot of freedom with this project in terms of what medium you want to use, and also in terms of what style. But I just want to remind you that whatever style you choose, make sure it's a style that you can achieve and maintain. So what that means is, like, you can pull it off. You can work in that style successfully. It doesn't mean that it has to be a style you've worked in before. Feel free to explore a new style, but it just has to be one that you are willing to commit to and really explore and develop, and maintain. Meaning, if you choose to work realistically and you have people in your artwork, then you have to be committed to putting in the appropriate amount of detail. So like in, say, in faces, or like working on hands, or like shadows on clothing and things like that. The piece on the left that you see on this slide is much more abstract, and so the women don't have facial features or like details on their clothing or hands, but it's okay. It matches the overall abstract style. Okay, so, and that's just for us to help you as the artist maintain unity, which is something that every artist strives for in their work. Consider what statement you want your artwork to make. So you choose a theme, then you identify a topic, and then you think about what statement you want to make about the topic. Like, what do you want to say about your topic? Because remember that every artwork does make a statement. And identifying that statement right off the start will help you to do this step, which is to start coming up with imagery, like start designing a composition. So like what will be in the artwork, in other words. And it says on this slide here, you might have to do some research. Like you might have to learn more about a certain topic or collect reference photos. Note the yellowish box there in the middle. It says that you should be working in boxes, so thumbnail sketch boxes, so that you can start to think about positive, negative shape. And the image that you see on the top right corner here is the actual finished artwork of these sketches. So this is something a student completed a few years ago. And don't forget to plan the distribution of the darkest values, because those are the ones that really pop out. So that idea of balance and creating equilibrium, you really want to plan out the darkest values at the very onset of the compositional planning. And this is just more examples of what we mean by planning your composition in thumbnail sketches. And work really loose, really rough. Look at all those thumbnail sketches on the right side there. They're very loosey-goosey. They're not super refined, but they're all about composition. So the artist is thinking about the placement of the big general shapes and the darkest values, where they should be. And then once you have a general idea, you can start getting more specific. And that's just another example. And this is a good example of how sometimes artists make notes in their sketchbooks. So feel free to make notes on your sketch paper, or if you're working in a sketchbook, and that might mean like just thoughts you have, or research information that you collect and that you want to use to help you develop your idea. That's it. So you have a lot of freedom for this project, but approach it systematically. Identify a theme, then choose a topic. Think about what statement you want to make, and then start researching, start sketching, plan your composition. Use all your artistic skills that you've acquired thus far. Think about what medium you want to work in, and ask for help. And certainly I will be around to help you. Okay, but have fun with this project and with the freedom you've been given within it.